I don't see race. I just see people. Well, you know, at the end of the day, we all just bleed red. We're all one race, the human race. What do those three statements have in common, you may ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. Those are all classic defenses of people who have chosen the colorblindness mindset. Before I get into all the details about why colorblindness is absolute garbage, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Like, you already here, you've already made it this far. If you made it this far, you're probably gonna come back and watch another one anyway. So just go ahead and click that subscribe button. What is colorblindness? Colorblindness is this mindset or this idea that by choosing to see past race or to look at people as people and not by the color of their skin, that you're combating racism because you're not drawing attention to people's race, right? That's like the overall idea of it. The thing about this whole colorblindness mindset is that the majority of the people who say things like, I don't see color, really think that they're doing something great and being progressive by choosing not to see people by the color of the skin, but by who they are. And while that's all nice and good that y'all really out here trying to half-heartedly put in work for the cause, you're really doing absolutely nothing. In fact, you're contributing to racism. The simplest way that I can explain this to you is that ignoring race or racism does not make racism stop, right? I mean, that's just a basic concept. If you're walking down the street and you see somebody get mugged and you decide to keep walking, that person still got mugged. Just because you decided to keep walking doesn't mean that incident didn't happen, right? If you're walking by a bank and the bank is getting robbed and you decide to say, oh, well, I don't see robbery, I just see banks. Okay, bitch, but everybody else in the bank just got robbed. Just because you decide that you don't want to see shit no more doesn't mean it's not happening. What? Just because you decide that you wanted to see past race and see people for who they are, which is not actually what you're doing, and I'll get into that in a second. That doesn't mean that there's not racism still happening and there's not inequalities that are still exist and still need to get the fuck out of here. You're just choosing to ignore the problem because you don't actually want to have to do anything about it. Because having to acknowledge that racism exists and having to acknowledge how to battle it means that you would have to examine privilege and the ways that you benefit in racism, and that is just too scary for white people to do. But in addition to that, there's also three main problems that I have with colorblindness, and one that's specific to adoption, right? So the first thing is you are not colorblind. Like, you're not colorblind, so I don't know why y'all be up here talking about I don't see color. Yes, you do. I'm looking at you. We looking at each other. You telling me you don't see that my skin is brown? Really? You colorblind. So when you look up in the sky, you can't see that the sky is blue. You don't know that the grass is green because you can't see color. Even people who are actually colorblind can tell the difference between people's skin color. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You do see color. You're just choosing to ignore color. You absolutely look at me and see that I am a brown person. The whole thing that racism is based on is people looking at you, seeing your skin color, and then making assumptions based on the skin color you see. So if you really wanted to combat racism or be colorblind for real, you would look at me, acknowledge that I'm a brown person, but then you wouldn't make any assumptions based on the skin color that I have and all the stereotypes in your head. Or at least you wouldn't act on those stereotypes, because it's just human nature. It's literally how our bodies and brains are programmed to work, that our brain categorizes shit based on the knowledge that we have. That's just a fact. It's never not gonna be a thing. So any of y'all out here acting like you don't ever categorize people, you're lying. The difference is whether you choose to act on that. Step back and say, whoa, wait a minute, brain. That's one of those little stereotypes that's built in your head. We gotta rewire that because that's not real. That's the difference. Not just choosing to ignore it altogether, because it's still happening. Just because you ignore it doesn't mean it's stopped. It dismisses people's identities. So if you're choosing to just erase everybody's skin color, you're also erasing their culture, their upbringing, their values, their morals. And not to say that all those things are based on skin color, but a lot of the cultural stuff that we have in our lives, the way we were raised, the similarities and the differences we have are because of our skin color and where we come from. And that's all linked together. So if you just decide to ignore all that, then you're basically just looking at it as like a bunch of robots, and that's not at all what people are. That's like the whole thing that makes us different than being robots, is that we all are different, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You can't look at, if you just look at me and say, oh, I don't see a black woman there, then what the fuck am I left if I don't have my identity as a black woman? If you look at me and you just see a human, which what the fuck even is just a human? Like, what does that even mean? If you are just looking at every single person as a human, what does that mean? How do you interact with somebody who's just a blank sheet human? How do you have a conversation? What language do they speak? What are their cultural values? How do you know? You can't know, because you've just stripped everybody of their identities because you don't see color or anything that makes us unique. There's nothing wrong with my color. There's something wrong with you. And not only are you erasing my identity, but you're also erasing all the struggles that I have faced because I am a black woman, right? So you're just saying that everything that I have experienced in my life does not exist, and I'm just a big fat liar because you've just decided to erase everything that has to do with me. My skin color, the experiences that I've had, the path that I've had in life, my skin color is all a part of that. I would have a completely different life track if I was white or if I was Asian, and that's the same goes for every single person. Our skin color is part of what makes us unique and what ties us and what differentiates us from other people. There is nothing wrong with acknowledging skin color. I don't know where you guys got this idea that acknowledging somebody's color or somebody's race is an issue. It's like, I don't understand. Like, you always see those comments now on like Facebook articles and Twitter. It's like, why do you have to mention somebody's race? Why not? What is wrong with mentioning somebody's race? It's just a fact. It is a fact that I'm a black woman. It is a fact that my mother is a white woman. So why should you be offended that you're being called what you are, or that you're identifying with what you are? I'm black. Why would you not see me as black? That's who I am. It's a part of me. And to demonize that is exactly where racism comes from. So demonizing that people are different is exactly why we have racism today. Why would you try to erase all the differences that people have that makes them unique, instead of saying, hey, it's cool that you're black, and that's cool, and I'm gonna embrace you with your blackness and everything that makes you unique and everything that makes you different. Instead of being like, oh my God, I see that you black, so I'm just going to scrub all that off. Go ahead and scrub all that Negro off. And I'm just gonna look at you as a pile of bones. Like, what? We have all of these inequality issues today because people are afraid of people who are different than them. That is all you're doing by trying to be colorblind. You're just saying that you are uncomfortable with people who are not you. Not to mention that y'all only apply this logic when it's to people of color. That's how I know you guys are full of shit. Because nobody ever says, you know what, Sally, I don't want to acknowledge that you are 72% Irish. I just see you as human. No, you guys only ever pull this card when it comes time for you to acknowledge a person of color who is a different color than white. That is literally the only time that y'all pull out this colorblindness card. That's furthermore how I know that you guys are all bullshit and you're just trying to cover up for the fact that you don't want to have to address racism. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about, which applies specifically to white adoptive parents, is this is like the most dangerous possible thing that you can do if you are adopting people of color. And the reason why is that so many adoptive parents, especially the white ones, they have this idea that they can just love away racism, right? And I've said this before, that I really honestly believe that most white adoptive parents have the best intentions in mind, but they are stuck in these things like colorblindness, and they think if they ignore race, then their child is just gonna grow up in this big happy family. I'm here to tell you that that is like the worst possible thing that you can do. Because as I said in my very first point, just because you ignore something doesn't mean it's not happening. Well, you, the white parent, is over here doing a Cotton Eye Joe in your white utopia. Your transracial adoptee is over here to the side, dealing with all these microaggressions and racism, and we don't know what the fuck is going on because you have just made it so normal that we don't talk about or acknowledge race, even though we are still dealing with racism by ourselves now, because our parents have made it very clear to us that they are white and white is the only thing that goes. That is like the worst possible thing that you can do. And that is why so many transracial adoptees don't feel like they can go to their white adopted parents, and then they turn to things like substance abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and then God forbid they just kill themselves. Like, transracial adoptees have a very, very high rate of suicide, and it's because of shit like this, because you guys make an environment where it is dangerous for us to even talk about the racism that we're dealing with, because you guys are over here in your fucking white utopia land, and everything that we try to come to you about racism, it's always a, oh, they didn't mean it like that, oh, you know, race, it's not about race, maybe it was just because of blah, 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 and this and this and this. So you just shitting on all of our experiences that we're dealing with because of race. Just because you, a white person, don't want to have to take responsibility for dealing with racism. And it's bullshit. And honestly, you're killing people. Probably your own kids. So I hope you're happy. I said before, I really honestly don't believe that most white adopted parents are trying to be racist. And I truly don't believe most people who are colorblind are trying to be racist. They really think they're doing the right thing. But guess what? You're not. And this is the time where you need to kind of get your shit together and start to rethink and reprogram your mind to get that bullshit out of here. Because the rest of us are dying while you're over here fucking river dancing in the wind because you don't want to have to deal with racism. We're dying. Like, literally every single day we're being murdered because of racism. But that is all for this week's discussion. As always, y'all, let me know your feedback down in the comments. What do you guys think about colorblindness? Is it garbage? Is it not? I mean, the correct answer is it is garbage, but you know, let me know what you thought down in the comments anyway. As always, don't forget to give this a thumbs up, share it, and go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you have not yet. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.